Right, we are back. We've managed to sort the tech, which is always good. So, as I said, slightly changed agenda for the afternoon, but we're sort of good. We think we're going to get everything sorted and back on some kind of track. So, was scheduled before lunch, but this is Lauren. She's from Google, and Lauren, over to you.
Thanks so much. Perfect. So I'm going to apologise in advance for the marketing approved slides that I've had to bring, but so apologies. I'm Lauren. I'm a security engineer at Google Cloud. I work solely with public sector, and I've been 10 years in hyperscalers, so kind of feel like apologising on behalf of hyperscalers as well. So I've kind of worked at Google for 5 years and worked at AWS for 5 years as well. So today I'm here to talk about the Google Cloud sovereign thing and what we actually mean by sovereign, because it's slightly different from the other hyperscalers. So I'll kind of talk over the slides rather than just kind of do that, because they are the marketing spiel, so apologies. But just kind of, I'll skip past this one, but it's just kind of Google's mission, which is to organise the world's information and make it universally accessible. So as part of that, Google Cloud has its own mission, which is to help organisations accelerate and digitally transform through data powered innovation on the most secure infrastructure. And so what that kind of means is kind of everything from the actual underlying data centers all the way through to data and our software as a service kind of offerings as well. So over the years, we're seeing an increase in sovereign demand. So I don't know if anyone knows kind of Google Cloud here very well. Yep, cool. So how we were typically kind of built was mostly on a kind of global infrastructure. And over the years, we're seeing an increased demand in sovereignty. So we've started kind of pivoting a lot of our solutions to sovereignty type solutions. And I'll go through a couple of them today and what that actually means and kind of how organizations can kind of secure their data and host their data and kind of have operational sovereignty as well. But the reason why we've done this is we're seeing a global demand in increase in sovereignty from kind of increased regulation, independence expectations, all the way from geopolitical kind of resilience and need for drive for faster innovation. So we kind of, again, marketing spiel, so apologies, but the idea of this is cloud on your terms. So not on the hyperscaler terms, it's on kind of your terms. And what that means is being able to innovate fast as needed for businesses, but in a way that also addresses the security and the sovereignty of it. So we have a slightly different definition of sovereignty at Google. And so we kind of class it in 3 different ways. From kind of software sovereignty, which is all about kind of open source technology, open cloud, not vendor lock-in. So we are like kind of the clouds work on different cloud technologies. So a prime example is BigQuery can work on AWS, it can work on Microsoft. And the idea behind this is that we understood the need for organizations to not have vendor lock-in and not have kind of, and be able to choose the right hyperscaler for them for the right need. So we have what we call software sovereignty, so the ability to run workloads without dependencies. Then we've got our data sovereignty. So that's like every hyperscaler, that's kind of data residency, assurance, encryption, access to data, things like that. So I'll go into a little bit of detail about that and how we do that. And then the other one was operational sovereignty. So have visibility and control of the operation of that. We kind of addressed this in various different ways and how we do this, from kind of portability and open source and kind of Kubernetes type infrastructure, all the way through to encryption. And I won't go into detail on that because every hyperscaler has the same, so like custom, like own managed keys, that type of thing. Access control, again, very similar to the other hyperscalers. Data storage, governance, residency, and data privacy and things like that. So we've done it in kind of different ways. So we've got what we call our Google Cloud data boundary. Sorry, I'll move out the way so you can see the screen. Apologies. So this is kind of where the data, does the data sovereignty need. So this is kind of storing the data within region, having access boundaries within residency, who accesses that as well. So we have the ability to kind of put not just data residency controls on there, but kind of regulation controls as well. And I'll go into a little bit of detail on that and how we do that. Then we've got what we call Google Cloud Dedicated. So this is very similar to kind of what we heard earlier about AWS having the Germany model. The difference with the Google Cloud Dedicated is that Google doesn't own the company that operate it. It's with what we call trusted partners. So I'll go into a little bit of detail on what that is as well. And then we've got a completely air-gapped environment. So this is something that you can run disconnected. It's operated in data centers, but customer data centers, either by customers or in some countries, Google does operate it, or we do have partners as well. And that's kind of ideal for the really sovereign, sovereign control needs as well, where it needs to be disconnected from the internet. Take UK, for example, UK residency operated by UK personnel, and things like that as well. So I'll go into a little bit of detail about what that is. So Google Cloud Data Boundary is kind of our data residency and access control. So as with every cloud provider, you have the ability to choose the data within region. And we've got various data centers across the world for Google Cloud. We are expanding them data centers as well. So we'll have new regions come online. And again, just like with the other hyperscalers, it's you kind of click where you want your data stored. Its encryption is automatically done for you. And then you can just choose whether you want your customer managed keys or whether you want the default Google encryption. But again, I won't go into detail. That's very similar to the other hyperscalers. We also have what we call administrative access controls. So this is kind of the support side of it. So this is where you can put what we call assured workloads. And what that means is if you've got a requirement to have data stored, say, solely in the UK or solely in a European region, what that does is that it puts a set of security controls over your kind of projects that you're enabling that, and only people who are residency in that country that you've set have access to support. So that's kind of bridging the data and operational side of sovereignty as well, but still being on public cloud, still being with Google Cloud as well. So when you think about the layers of sovereignty, it's still being run by the US kind of mothership. But you have the access to kind of store and process data locally, as well as have the support teams operating it locally as well. And then you can optionally have a partner, so a local trusted partner that can manage the kind of encryption keys for you. So if you don't want to manage it yourself, you can choose to have, again, a local partner that can manage that as well and kind of provide that support. So that's kind of where we go with the data side of things and the data residency, how I said. And again, it's very kind of, we've got very different two sets of it. So we've got what we call regional data boundary. So that's where data has to be stored within country. And so we've got optional controls that you can choose from things like Kubernetes, Compute Engine, the data platforms that we've got, storage, AI, things like that. And that ensures that all the data is stored, processed, and managed support-wise within the regional data boundaries. Because we've seen the increase in regulation as well, we actually have controls based on regulations that you can put on there as well. So we've got things like a selection of controls for FedRAMP and various other kind of regulations that we see across these platform resources. And so what it does is it automatically applies these security controls on the workloads that you choose to put under there for you. And then you can audit it as well. So you can make sure you're being compliant and you can make sure that data is not leaving. And it gives you that little bit more kind of trust that the data is where it is, managed by the people that you want and things like that. So then moving into the dedicated cloud. So this is where it's built to meet just the slightly stronger operational sovereignty needs. So this is run by not by Google Cloud. So this would be with a trusted partner that would be within the country that you would like to operate in. So we've got a few countries where this has already gone live in, and in effect, it's dedicated sovereign infrastructure. So it's not managed in a Google Cloud data center. It'll be managed in a partner data center within country by local sovereign operators who own that data center. So when you think about the Cloud Act and things like that, because it's not a US company operating it, it's run by an in-country company, it kind of negates the US kind of oversight. And so it's got boundary proxies, it's got data. We do have kind of data exchanges with Google, but it's all controlled by the in-country operator, the trusted partners that we use. And it's built for redundancy as well within the country. So again, like you think, availability zones, things like that as well. So we do have a few of these already live within Europe. So we've got Thales in Paris, we've got T-Systems in Germany, and we've got a few more coming online as well, because especially within Europe, we're seeing the need to have that kind of in-country oversight that's not by Google Cloud. So again, very similar to what AWS have just announced with their Germany region, but this is rather than Google owning it and a different country, this is a trusted partner that has that will have the oversight for you. And then moving on, sorry, I'm going through really quickly, so apologies. So moving on to the Google Cloud Air Gap. So this is an on-premise solution deployed and operated without any external connections. And we've got various types of this. So it'll be up to the client or whoever chooses to use this to put, like, if they want access to the internet. And all this is ineffectively, this is racks that you put in your own data centers. So you actually control it. It's an air-gapped deployment, so it deploys services completely outside of the kind of connections, no connection to Google whatsoever. It will be all the kind of organizations, networks. So when it comes to sovereignty, it is fully sovereignty. It is, not connected whatsoever. It's fully managed and has integrated services. So how we're doing this is because we knew the need for sovereign was increasing, but people want to still use cloud and all the good things that come with cloud. We've actually incorporated the software. So in the racks, you get services like AI, Gemini, databases, infrastructure as well. So it's a cloud-like environment, but the organizations using it completely own it. They completely control everything there. And it's built on open source components. So going back to the sovereign definition that we have on software sovereignty, it's built on a Kubernetes API, so it can be ported across different things. So if a customer or whoever's using it doesn't want to use it anymore, they can port it onto, like say, their on-premise environment using Kubernetes. So it gives that kind of control over everything that customers are looking for. And then we do have various options. So customers can they can control it themselves. And what they'll do is they'll purchase I think minimum is 4 racks, and it comes with a base level of kind of storage, compute, TPUs, GPUs, that type of thing. And then you can have add-on kind of servers to increase the capacity as well. So in theory, you could build out your entire data center on it. It'd be very expensive, I'm not going to lie, but you could kind of build it out and have full control over everything and still get that cloud-like experience. What we have seen an increasing amount is people choosing partner operated. So the management of that with a trusted partner, but then they get the benefit of using a cloud-like environment that is fully sovereign, from operated by the people that they choose, on data centers that they choose, on in effect, in an environment that is disconnected from what we call the mothership, from Google Cloud. So it is fully control, sovereign from software, operational, and data as well. And there's no external cutoff switch, so it cannot be remotely shut down by Google. So when you think about kind of some of the concerns people have on sovereignty, which is where a service will be shut down, and it's like, what do we do? It cannot be. It's completely disconnected whatsoever from Google. So it's full definition of sovereignty. And so it can run in edge locations as well. So we've got 3 types. We've got the Google Distributed Cloud air-gapped, which is the 4 racks. And that's kind of where people run big kind of workloads on there in a very disconnected. So it's ideal for like defense and kind of customers like that, telcos, things that where sovereignty needs to be fully operationally by UK citizens or country within regions. But we do have a couple of extra ones. So we've got what we call Google Distributed Cloud Connected. And that is connected to Google, but runs disconnected as well. So what I mean by that is that it gets its updates from the cloud. So it's really used in environments where there's not a lot of internet connectivity and things like that is the most use case we've seen it. But all it does allow you to do is still run in a sovereign environment. So a lot of kind of people use that when they'd like to access the kind of compute that hyperscalers do give them, but then they want the kind of sensitive workloads run in a sovereign way. So we're starting to see people, when they're thinking about security and sovereign and control, kind of tier their data, like put data in the cloud that they don't quite mind being in public cloud, but the data that they don't want in public cloud, that they want full control over, they would use the Google Cloud Distributed Connected. And so they'll get the updates from the cloud when needed, but everything else runs in a disconnected world. And then we have what we call the tactical. So that is, it's meant to be something that someone can carry, but it's kind of a 2-person job to carry. And that's something that can be deployed on kind of remote locations and things like that as well. And again, that works fully disconnected. It's updated by the air-gapped solution. So in terms of sovereignty, it is literally as sovereign as you can be. You can move it in different places, controlled by the people that you want to be controlling, connected to an air-gapped environment that only you have control over as well. But you still get the benefit of the cloud, of the solutions that every businesses like to use. So really where we see this kind of sovereign need is, is things like public sector, finance sector, critical infrastructure, and disaster recovery and emergency response. So those that are highly regulated need to have that operational sovereignty, as well as kind of the software sovereignty and the data sovereignty as well. And again, it's zero trust architecture. So in terms of the security of it, it's got your usual, I won't go into details of this because it's every kind of cloud has similar, but it's got your identity access management, resource manager, 2-factor authentication, authorization. So you've got a control plane where you can control role-based access, things like that. Encryption at rest and at transit, by customer managed keys as well. And you've got your kind of key stores and things. Everything's encrypted by default. And then you've got end-to-end visibility and monitoring of it as well. So it's got a zero trust architecture, and because it's disconnected and air-gapped, you can say who controls it, who has access to it, and everything there. And so I just, again, marketing spiel, so apologies. But because Google's known for AI, it wouldn't be a Google presentation without AI being mentioned. The reason our kind of solution is kind of what we're doing is a lot of people have that need for sovereign control and need, but they also want the benefits of the hyperscalers, and they want the benefits of the AIs and of the kind of scalable databases and compute. So we're kind of bridging the gap between the two. So we're trying to put cloud on your terms in effect. So keeping sovereign as important, security controls, zero trust architecture, operational control, data control, software control as well, while still giving the benefits of what you get with cloud. So we have all of this is kind of based off of open source data, so including Gemma, which is our open source AI. So again, it can be run where you want, how you want, in a way that accessed by who you want as well. And all in a kind of cloud-like experience. So to summarize, because I think I've got 1 minute left. In effect, we've kind of taken sovereignty in 3 aspects. And we split it out as well. So the idea of this is that you can control your sovereignty needs as and when you need it. And so, as I say, a lot of our customers are tiering their data. So getting the benefits of cloud when they need it versus the really kind of sensitive stuff where they do need that sovereign control. So we've kind of broken it up into, as I say, data, software and operational, and these are kind of how we're addressing that need. So from the Google Cloud data boundary, with assured workloads, that kind of restricts who has access but still run on public cloud, and still kind of in the Google Cloud mothership, all the way to the Google Cloud dedicated, which is run by an in-country trusted partner. So again, France, Thales, Germany, T-Mobile, where they are kind of operated in that country, to those that have the stringent sovereign needs, where it's fully disconnected, controlled by them in every way possible. So I think I've got time for questions. 5 minutes. So that's kind of how we're addressing the sovereign need. But yeah, if there's any questions, I know I kind of skimmed through. There's a lot of technical detail that will take an hour. So yeah. Yep.
Thank you for this. So 2 questions. Do you have kind of any service in the Middle East? And second thing, when you talked about your air gap solution, like you mentioned it briefly that firms can take their own decision to connect it back and get the latest update, because that's one of the key things. So how often is that frequency? Thank you.
Yeah. So in terms of the first question, so do we have in the Middle East? So data boundary, we do have regions. So there is a data boundary region within the Middle East as well. When it comes to dedicated, so a trusted partner, there is not one at the moment, but that doesn't mean that there won't be one in the future. It's about the demand and then finding a trusted partner to kind of host that as well. And then when it's the fully disconnected air-gapped one, that's customers purchasing it. So if there's a customer that would like to purchase an air-gapped environment, then they can, and they'll just get racks and then they manage it how they want. In terms of the connection on the Google Distributed Cloud Connected, so the Google Distributed Cloud Connected can last about 2 weeks not connected at all before it needs to be connected back to the kind of Google Cloud for updates. In terms of the air-gapped one, how we do update features and things like that in a very kind of cloud-like way, but still controlled air-gapped, is a very controlled process where when there's new features available, whoever's running it, we call them the infrastructure operator. So whenever they're running it, they will choose when to update. And then they'll go through their controlled process and then to update the racks and the air-gapped ones as well. So that is controlled by the customer when they want to update. So there is no forced update or anything like that as well. So hopefully that answered your question. Cool. Any more?
First of all, thank you for the great presentation. Well done. For the air gap solution, if the customer himself will manage the availability zone, if you want multi-available zone, or he can connect to a public cloud for like a DR scenario?
So for the air-gapped solution, it depends on the need. So if the customer brings their own network to it, so they control everything there. If they want to connect it to the public cloud, that's up to them. They control kind of the racks, the servers, everything. How it will get, because it won't be connected to the Google network, they won't get updates that way. That will be a very controlled process. They'll just have an internet connection on a network. Most choose not to because they want the sovereignty, they want the air-gapped environment, and the use cases they need it is air-gapped. But they control their network that goes into it. With the air-gapped, you're only purchasing racks in effect, and then the kind of services on them racks, and it's not connected to Google at all, so you can't get updates that way. It's a different controlled process.
Thank you.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Right. Time to go remote again. We're going to live dangerously. And I need to go stop sharing. Mariano.
Hi.
Hi.
Good afternoon, all.
The wonders of technology.
Yeah. Hi, all. Thank you very much. Welcome, you all.
You've missed the fun and games here this morning, Mariano. We had an hour this morning where we had a fire alarm.
Oh.
So thankfully, no, not real fire. Well, we don't think there was a real fire, but in a 37-story building or whatever, they sort of take all sorts of precautions. So it's all been fun and games here. Anyway, nice to have you with us. Thank you very much. And yeah, you should be able to share your screen, and over to you.
Thank you very much. Let me check that the screen can be shared. Here we are already, and just to check it out. It looks funny, but I cannot find right now the slide deck. Just indulge me for a minute. Ah, here is it. No, here's not. Ah, here is it. I'm sorry. Sorry. Let me check it out again so I can find the slideshow. Now it's ready and I can share it. Paul, you were right. After all, we have technical issues. Not the one we expected, but technical issues anyhow. So, good afternoon all. Thank you very much for attending this session. I thought that this session will be really interesting because cloud sovereignty is something that we have been through, and by we I mean many colleagues at the Spanish chapter of Cloud Security Alliance. And also we find the same interest in other chapters around Europe. And I must thank you very much, Linda Strick, CCA EMEA leader, who is also in the conversation with us, because she identified also the same interest in many chapters and put us in contact. So we were able to face the same problems at the same time. And Linda, thank you very much for attending us. First, I want to introduce myself. My name is Mariano Benito. I'm cybersecurity and privacy ambassador at a Spanish company called GMB. Maybe if some of the people in the audience is working for Telefónica Tech, they may know us because, I mean, Telefónica is a big brand in Spain, and we know very well each other. And well, this is a fact that is funny for most of all. But the most relevant thing today is that I'm also the research and development vice president of the Spanish chapter of CCA. And I'm in charge of having a funny agenda of new topics and new research items and artifacts to research with my colleagues in Spain. And well, this is one of the ideas that we were discussing whether to do it in Spain when, as I mentioned, it was already addressed in European and EMEA level. And there is also with me Ms. Laura Naya. He's an associate in the Spanish chapter, and I must confess, she is the real heart and the brains behind all this work. She has been the hardest worker and the girl that spent more time thinking on the cloud sovereignty problem. So we all must thank her for his courage and his interest on the topic. So this is us, and maybe Laura, you should take.
Okay. Well,
no, here, sorry, here the problem is still a rag. I was not presenting the first slide, but the last one, so I was unable to pass it. So Laura, I give you the floor to introduce us in the topic.
okay. Well, I want your attention. Imagine this for a moment. You wake up tomorrow and the entire digital ecosystem you depend on. Your data, your communication, your identity, your business system is suddenly governed by laws, decisions, and priorities of a country you've never visited. No warning, no control, no voice. That's what cloud depends feels like today for many nations, for many companies, and even for many individuals. And that's why we are here. Mariano and I want to take you on a journey, not into the future, but into what we must redefine today if we want the future we can trust. We are talking about the cloud sovereignty, but let me tell you something surprising. Cloud sovereignty itself, it's not the problem. Our definition of it is. Well, Mariano,
No,
next slide.
this is very important. We will go into that, but this is a question for you in the audience. Have you ever find a formal and approved definition of what cloud sovereignty is?
Well,
next question will be, if you ever find one, do you think it will be a portable one? That is, if you ask another people, they will provide you with the same definition?
okay.
This is the real concern behind that point.
Yeah, but now we don't have in the regulations. It's just about for example, many companies, many associations talk about. But now we have a definition and the reality. And well, and here's the things when even more challenging because cloud sovereignty is now the hot topic everywhere. Because the government, industries, and citizens are talking about, and even is the reason that why we are here all today. Because even with so much attention and the continuous sliding, we will show our work and even the work that European Commission has already. Next slide, please. Cloud sovereignty is becoming a global movement, and every region is shaping its own version of a digital independence. I want to give you a tour. For example, in the United States, a sovereign cloud means a full isolation, both physical and logical, handled only by clear US personnel and under federal law. For Canada, has a sovereignty to control data regardless of where the technology comes from. Brazil keeps government data entirely inside the country. Saudi Arabia requires sensitive data to stay in the kingdom. This is it's a peculiar comment considering that the residency and key part of the sovereignty. And Qatar follows a similar path, keeping critical data fully under national control. And for example, in India, the pillar is data operation and cloud capability, all in government. And China, the state directly oversees digital infrastructure, cloud operations, and data regulation. Across the European Union, France takes the very strict approach, requiring a strong security, local hosting, and protection from foreign laws. And Germany centers its model of being able to operate independently without relying too much on any single provider. This country stand out because they are actively moving toward to the stronger digital autonomy, each in their own way, shaping how cloud sovereignty is evolving around the world. because they have a similar question: who controls the data, who controls the infrastructure, and even who controls the decisions. Next slide, please. So we have in this slide two core definitions shown. For example, the first is the ability to make decisions. In other words, is having full authority without external pressure or control. The second one is make those decisions effective. In other words, it's having the means, power, and conditions to put them into a practice. Only when both elements are present can true sovereignty be achieved. Mariano, over to you.
Thank you very much. As you can see, one of the key decisions that we have is that there is no singular definition that could be applicable to all cases. We extracted these two elements that are relevant. So anytime we find that someone is sovereign or something is sovereign, because it can do these two things. And this is a very, very interesting issue, because to take decisions means that someone can take the decision. Can take the decision. So I can take the decision for my company, for my entity, but I cannot take decisions for another companies. So this is where things began to become more complicated. We try to speak about sovereignty, but what we do have is sovereign entities. And each of these entities are sovereign and want to be and remain sovereign by themselves. This is quite easy to understand if we take entities as countries. And you take country number one, country A, this country want to stay sovereign, so he want to take their own decisions. And then you go to country B, and country B want to take their decisions, and then go to country C, D, E, and so on. So at the end, you may face that these countries can take different decisions, and sometimes they take decisions against other countries. So we speak a lot about sovereignty, but when we go to the real world, what we see is sovereign entities that may or may not have the same interest. So this is where sovereignty becomes a difficult issue. And then it becomes a more difficult issue, because to be sovereign, you have to be able to take your decisions, step number one, and then you have to put that into place. For that, you need your resources. I mean, if I can take a decision and I decide upon something, but then I am unable to put that into practice and I don't have the resources to put that into practice, maybe I'm not that sovereign. So the question here comes on, how do I get those resources, those services? The first idea is the classical idea is to be an autocracy in which I have any resource I may need. And by any, I mean absolutely any. I can be cut off of the world for as long as I like, because I don't care. I can remain sovereign. Of course, this approach is no longer valid. Most countries, most entities have a supply chains from which they are collect some of the resources. So that's fine. If I want to remain sovereign, maybe I be an autocracy in which I can collect all the information that is useless, it cannot be sustained, or I have to take into account my supply chains, which is made of different entities that may desire to stay sovereign on their own. So this a second step in the sovereignty problem that must be faced. To be sovereign, you have to be able to take your decisions, so you need someone to take the decisions, and you have to put that into practice, so you need the resources. And it's very difficult to keep resources and decision-making process just in a single project. You are connected more or less with other entities. So This is the bad definition of the sovereignty issue that we face. So we decided that something was to be accomplished. And as we told before, we decided that this required a deeper analysis. So we established a working group made of volunteers. Currently, there are people in the Netherlands, in Singapore, and in Spain. We are open to more volunteers if you feel like it. I will repeat this message a couple of extra times. And once we are collected, we have been discussing for several months to reach an agreement and to know how we should address this problem. The rest of the presentation includes the conclusion we have already reached. And there is another point to be considered. This is the mission. I will not read it aloud. You can read it in your place. But the interesting thing here is that to achieve this, we want to reach to these conclusions in short time. Our first intention was to have this working group concluded by Q1 in 2026. Maybe we will go into Q2. So this is why we still need a lot of discussion. And this is the way we want to work. We'll still have something really mature, but we are open to more discussions and going into the small details that usually make the difference. One of the key conclusions we also address is that the cloud sovereignty problem has several dimensions. The most obvious is the political one. Many people understand sovereignty exclusively from the country's point of view. So countries are sovereign, they keep their political status and so on, and cloud sovereignty must be a part of this political sovereignty. That's fine. That's right. Countries are entities, they want to remain sovereign, and they use political instruments to do so. That's fine. Of course, this is something that usually politicians are very good at, so that's good. What many politicians do is that they use the legal and jurisdictional instruments to pour their digital and cloud sovereignty concerns into legal instruments that are applicable to any entity located and incorporated in their jurisdiction in their country. So here we find that the countries put the rules, they make that into laws, and then we have to comply with the laws. And here where the technology part comes into place. And I used a different color for the technology part because it's the most important thing for us in CSA. At CSA, we are no politicians, we are no lawmakers, we are technological experts. I think this is something you share with us, and you already know very well about this knowledge. So our first decision was to focus on the technological part and give the political, legal, and jurisdictional dimensions to people really professional and concerned on that point. We are technicians. We are technological experts, so we will take the technological issue. And then we have a different approach, is analyzing who were the concerned parties in cloud sovereignty. The first one is pretty easy to catch. Let's say countries, authorities, regulators, anyone that can produce regulations for digital sovereignty. By far, these people are the more active actor in the sovereignty field. They are the ones they speak more about sovereignty. They are really concerned on that, and of course they aim to be sovereign in their jurisdiction. So the role is pretty simple to understand and pretty clear. Then we can go to the cloud service providers. Helen has just introduced some of Google's solution for addressing digital and cloud sovereignty. And the bad thing for cloud service provider is that they are global companies that work everywhere in the world. We know it. That's fine. The bad thing comes when they want to comply with all regulations, because if you are working in a certain jurisdiction in a certain country, you're expected to comply with the regulations in that country. If you work In all countries, you're expected to comply with all laws. That can be said in a simple manner, but it's really, really, really hard to achieve. First, lot of countries, lot of jurisdictions, lot of laws to comply with. Second, conflicts. Many regulations are conflicting with other regulation in other countries. That's a fact. In fact, this is a short story. Someone said that one of the reasons for the GDPR regulation in Europe is because cloud provider said to the European Commission at the time, okay, we want to comply with privacy regulations in Europe, but it's really hard for us to comply with the 28 different regulations. If we will have one single regulation, it will be easier and we will be most willing to accomplish that task. This is really an unofficial story. I'm not sure if this ever happened, but for sure, having a single regulation for all the countries make the thing easier for cloud service providers because, as I mentioned, they're expected to comply with each and every regulation. They cannot fail, but one. They must comply with them all. Next, and this is probably our role, we use the cloud. And by using the cloud, we expect to comply with the regulation. And that means that we are expecting our CSP to comply with the regulations. This is why one country after another, we ask the CSP to comply with each and every regulation. So if my provider is complying with the regulation, the rest is up for me. I will have to comply with the rest of the cloud sovereignty regulation. And of course, the individuals and the ESMEs, they expect that their rights are respected, but mostly they are unable to have specific tools for doing so. So they rely on authorities and regulators to accomplish that, right? You get the idea? You see the difference between these four roles in cloud sovereignty? Because the roles are that important because they will drive us to different interests in cloud sovereignty. The first one, authorities, they will ask us to enforce and to apply their regulation. That's their interest because if everyone is complying with this regulation, then their digital and cloud sovereignty objective will be achieved. Next, CSPs, they must comply everything, but now they are not free to say which regulation they are complying and which they are not. They have to comply with all of them, even when conflicting. Cloud users, of course, they also have to comply with the regulations. And of course, they rely on the cloud service provider a lot, but they are expected and they expect their providers to comply with the regulations. Once again, the key word here is compliance, because individuals also expect compliance from their providers. They are smaller, but they also ask for compliance. So if we take all these elements into a single point, we have the first conclusion of this work. That is, for many corporations, cloud sovereignty is just a legal compliance issue. So you must face that from the compliance point of view. And this message, if there is some public authority in the audience, I'm pretty sure these people will strongly disagree with this conclusion. But this is because they have their own interest. And of course, we respect that and we support them and we will help that and we will help them to achieve them. But if you're a company that is not based in a single country, but based in 2, 3, 10 countries, each of these countries will ask you to have digital sovereignty and they will have regulations to oblige you to do so. This is why cloud sovereignty becomes a legal compliance issue and something that can be addressed and solved from the legal compliance issue. Okay? Do you see the idea? I mean, this is something that we kind of guess at the beginning of the work, but we have checked and rechecked on and on to be sure that this is the reality. And of course, there are some exceptions. If you are public administration, you are in the defense business, if you have your culture to be very close to a certain geography, if your business objectives will profit from digital sovereignty and cloud sovereignty, of course, those companies will also take a more active role in the cloud sovereignty issue, right? So this is the problem as we define it. Which are the solutions, Laura?
Okay, well, we have solutions to address more clarity here. The European Commission introduced the Cloud Sovereignty Framework published in October 2025, 1 month ago. This framework provides a structured way to evaluate sovereignty. It introduces sovereignty objectives and assurance levels, known as a Sovereignty Effectiveness Assurance Level or SEAL. That's classify cloud services from no sovereignty to full digital sovereignty. Thank you, Mariana. For example, the framework introduced 5 assurance levels from SEAL 0 to SEAL 4. The SEAL 0, no sovereignty, and SEAL 4 is full digital sovereignty. For example, what happened in the 0? Full dependence on non-EU control. But in the last one, full EU control with no critical non-EU dependency. So this is the part the companies, industries, and all are working because they have to pass, for example, a lot of companies to no sovereignty to full digital sovereignty. So I think, but we have a document. This document even give Europe a common language to talk about sovereignty. I think this is a framework to structure something. And well, next slide, please, Mariana. Mariana?
Yeah,
Thank you.
It takes a couple of seconds between your voice and you see the slide on the screen. Sorry, technical issues.
Thank you. And well, the next, well, here the framework also defines 8 sovereignty objectives, each contributing to a sovereignty score. For example, strategy sovereignty, legal and jurisdictional, data and AI, operational, supply chain, technology, security and compliance, and environmental sustainability. But I would like to draw your attention in this point because we have supply chain, now the highest in 20%. So Europe give priorities in this point. But well, to explain more, each objective is a set of contributor factors is considered to understand how effectively that objective can be achieved. The contracting authority is responsible for evaluating these factors in order to determine the assurance level provided by each tenderer. If any contributing factor shows a significant weakness, that weakness will reduce the overall assurance level assigned to that objective. In other words, even if most aspects of the strong are strong, our major deficiency in a single factor can influence the final assessment. So, well, in the next slide, so here's the key insight. So the what's and how's, what to need to be controlled, what is the objective matter, what the sovereignty must represent for all the countries. But the real challenge is not what, because we can use this framework for what. The real challenge is the hows, because defining sovereignty in principles and well, for example, there are a complexity in this point. How do we turn these objectives into enforceable conditions? How do we validate the providers truly comply? How do organizations operationalize the sovereignty at scale? These questions mark the next phase in Europe work, and the regulations we see today are only the beginning. But, well, European Commissions give a sovereignty objectives, but we have in the next slide 12 contractual requirements. This is just to give a coordination, precision, and execution. But in concrete, for example, we have location in the first score, defines where is the data. Jurisdiction as well is very important because it's what is the rule. Encryption and identity, I think so, is guaranteed to cryptography and independence. But for example, governance has the local presence and cloud service provider encourage the accountability. For example, reversibility and interoperability, eliminate a structural lock-in. On the other hand, have in the last line, security, compliance, and risk management that ensure to continuity and the resilience. And well, this slide, it's to reflect the importance that we have to jobs. The European Commission have now like objectives, but here we have the controls. It's not opposite. The objectives define the destination, and the 12 requirement to control requirements provide the mechanism. But I think we can work together. We can. It's not just work for one person. It's a work for all the person we are here. And I think it's very, very important to work together to have a better job. Okay, you have the floor, Mariano.
Laura, I cannot more than agree with you. Honestly, to be honest, first we have to say that our work began before the Commission did his. So, well, we arrived first, but they ran faster, I guess. The key thing here, as you mentioned, is that the what's are simple because they are less factor to identify. The real work is in the house. You have already mentioned 12 elements that should be included in the contractual requirements, but we are Cloud Security Alliance, and Cloud Security Alliance have a number of resources, and some of they should be applicable to solve the cloud sovereignty issue. That means that what we first thought is going to the security guidance and see what was inside. There was very interesting content, but there was no such chapter saying data such as cloud sovereignty. You could go and take some parts here and there, and well, that was interesting, but was not sufficient. So we went to the CEAK, and the CCM. And here we find a very different approach, an approach that is much more applicable. So we took all the controls, the almost 200 controls in the CCM, and we applied them into 4 different categories. The first ones, those controls that, serve for nothing on cloud security, sovereignty. I mean, they're fine. We can work with them. We can be happy with them, but having those implemented does not increase really much your cloud sovereignty posture. Then the second one are the controls that are already well defined. I mean, their definition is good enough to achieve our desired cloud sovereignty control on my cloud services. Those are the simplest one because the control is either applicable as it is or is not applicable at all. That's fine. But what we found out is there's also controls that can be partially applied. That means that if I have the full control in place, it's fine. Because for cloud sovereignty, I need just a part of the actually defined control. See the point? I don't need the full ideas, just a part of them. So I don't need the full control implemented. And last, don't be upset. We will see some examples there of controls and chapters that fall into these categories and why they fall into these categories. The last was the trickiest and the most interesting one, the enhanced control. Those controls are controls that are very well defined for cloud security purposes. But from the cloud sovereignty purposes, they lack something. Maybe it's not in the definition, but it's in the deepness of their applicability. So taking the control as it is not enough to be sure that I'm working on a sovereign cloud. And this is a really interesting point, because that means that we must enhance, we must increase, we have applied different and additional controls to our categories just to be sure that everything's fine and everything's in place. It was a little bit of a surprise for us, to be honest. We expected that the cloud control matrix would be sufficient as it was defined. But what we found is that the level of deepness need more and more detail. If we go to the different categories in the if we made a complete account on all these controls, the big news is that 41% of the controls fall into the enhanced category, and 46 of them fall into the yes category. So you can count that the cloud control matrix as it is sufficient for, let's say, almost 90% of the controls, with minor adjustments. But that's good. So if you have already a CCA Star 2 or CCA Star 3 accreditation, maybe you are already running a sovereign cloud and you didn't know. The controls that fall in the partial category are much more or less 5%, and 9% and 8% of controls that are simply, well, nice to have, but not useful for cloud sovereignty purposes. If we go to the actual chapters, we will see that the picture is very different between different chapters and different clauses. For instance, one absolutely leader is the API category. That is the control for interoperability and portability. All of them need an enhanced applicability, because portability means that your data and your services that are stored here are now moved, or which have the restriction and the condition under which you can move them to any other place. Of course, moving data have a risk to move the data outside your jurisdiction and losing your your cloud sovereignty. So in all these 4 controls, we found the same check. Please check which is the destination, which is the final element in which you plan to store and to run your services and to store your data. From the interoperability point of view, same issue. If I want to be interoperable with an activity that is outside our categories, then I have to check where is the final end, where is the other end of my communication, the other element in which I want to be interoperable with, and be sure that this second element is already compliant with my digital sovereignty requirements. This is maybe one of the most extreme cases. Another very extreme case is the application and interface security, in which none of the controls is valid as it is. All of them must be modified in some manner or other. The point here is quite simple. If we want to speak about interface security, my interface should be secure even before being sovereign. So at some points I fall too short because I don't check where my connections come from. I don't know if I'm being connected outside my cloud sovereignty jurisdiction or scope. And other points, those controls are irrelevant because you have to authenticate people. Well, I'm authenticating people. You have to use double factor of authentication. Then, okay, if I can double authenticate anyone, anywhere, so I don't care. I don't need to take extra controls. Okay, those are, several chapters, but the key point here is that to assure digital sovereignty, you must know where your data is, where your connections, your incoming connections are coming from, where your outgoing connections are going to, and if at that point something is moving out of your jurisdiction, you have to double check that everything's in place. And by everything, I mean your jurisdiction, the jurisdiction where the data is crossing in his movement, and their destination jurisdiction. That it can be done, of course. It's not that simple, of course, but it can be done. And by the way, this is now the key topic we are discussing, because this is our current picture. Some of the control has been collapsed into one of the states, but the volunteers and experts in the working group still are unsure that this is a final and close classification for this control. And I expect some discussion to keep on to occur in the next months and weeks. Okay. At the end, what we have is a technical tool, the CCM, a legal tool, that is the controls Laura already made. So we can check how can I be sure that my cloud is the cloud service that I'm consuming is a sovereign cloud service. And this is our goal, our aim, because we want to be sure that when I buy some sovereign cloud, I'm getting a sovereign cloud that complies with each of these elements. And of course, if I build my own private sovereign cloud, this is my requisite. So just moving on. So what are my next steps? Very simple. First, as I mentioned, we are welcoming volunteers, so feel free to contact us. You will be more than welcome. Next, we want to align our work that was already ongoing with the US framework that has been recently published. We see that the framework, the UN framework, is just complete and focus on the what's, and we already have a plan for the house and how to check and verify that all the objectives established in the framework can be achieved. Next, we will try to have some case studies in which to apply the framework we're developing and the process we're developing. And if everything goes fine, the document will be published, let's say Q2, most probably Q2 in 2026. Okay. And last, my three last elements, and this ends our presentation. First one, keep your focus. The sovereignty issue is something you have to address. Align to your business strategy. Rely on your business strategy to understand how is the best way to achieve cloud sovereignty. And this means that at some point your business strategy will be focused on compliance, another point will be on excellence, another point will be on autocracies. Any business strategy in your company is the one to follow, whether good or bad. Next one is completeness. We have been discussing and speaking a lot about the technical compliance on cloud sovereignty, because we are technical people. But we cannot forget that decisions are not taken in the technical field. They are taken in the political field, and then they are propagated into the next planes. So technical is just a way to achieve it. We cannot miss the rest of the dimensions. And last, compliance. Not because it can be the solution to the sovereignty problem, but because it's a must. You must remain sovereign. You must be autonomous. You must be able to take your decision, and that means that you have to have the resources and you have to comply with any requirement you have. So don't forget that cloud sovereignty is not a missing concept or a failed concept, but it's a hot topic right now, and we all have to comply with them. And saying so, we're open to any questions you may need, you may like to pose us. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mariano. Thank you, Laura. Any questions from the? No, not a question in sight, I'm afraid.
And maybe our position was a little bit surprising.
Okay.
Hang on a second.
Well, why are you saying it's a must? That's the bit that tripped me up a bit there. When you say cloud sovereignty is a must for compliance reasons, I mean, what's that based on?
Well, it's pretty clear that the political side has a real interest in being compliant and having everyone on board. So as long as they keep on using legislation to produce this information, we are all obliged to take the compliance part into place. So you cannot skip it. And once you are into the compliance business, then the next step is to be able to produce good results that can be usable for you. If you don't take sovereignty into account, at the end, you will see that some regulations are failing, that some authorities take extra interest on you because they don't see you aligned with their interest. And at the end, that means problems and a lot of problems that can be easily avoidable if you take digital sovereignty as part of your business requirements. So this is a must. It's a must because it's a regulation. It's a must because it's something that authorities are taking a lot of care on that. So avoiding that means problem in shorter or longer term.
I guess. Sorry,
well,
it's Sean, by the way. I guess there might be a distinction there between some of the European regulators and some of the less toothy ones we have in the UK, where we don't always worry quite so much about compliance because the fines are very small.
Well, then lucky you that you have small fines to comply. But as Laura says, this is something that goes at every country. But every country means that it was quite surprising for me when Laura says, "Oh, I have found the Brazilian the category legislation on digital sovereignty." I go, "Wow, these guys also have digital sovereignty." Of course, all countries see that IT and internet is a different field, and cybersecurity is a different field that may impact their actual sovereignty. So they all get concerned on that. And once, now that nobody is watching us, if you have the government and the military taking interest on you because they don't see you aligned, fines are maybe not your biggest problem at any cost.
When I was writing about the cloud sovereignty, I think I read a quote and says that data is the new oil. I think that as well is very important because data we have to protect. And I think this is the real problem because data is in everywhere. So, well, I think this quote was in my head because I think it's the way to explain this in a better way. I think so.
Yeah, I can definitely see the angle there for countries more geographically aligned with the US.
Well, some others are not aligned with the United States. I mean, but this is a political topic, and I will leave that to the politicians and governors in each country.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Mariano, Laura, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. And don't forget, if someone feels like joining the group, just raise your hand, send us an email, and we'll be very happy to have with you on board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
We'll certainly encourage them to do that.
Okay, let me, now with further ado, he says, Bola. It's Bola. Twist the camera back. No, we'll do this and then have a break. So, and that should, he says.
Well, see you. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye. Window, Bola, share, slideshow. There we are. There's your clicker, left, right. There's your microphone. Thank you. All yours.
Thank you very much. Okay, Digital Operational Resilience Act, DORA, not the one for the children now, but for everyone. I'm standing before you today because I'm riding on the wings of my giants. I didn't come here because I wanted to. I came here because I was encouraged to turn up, and I'm really grateful to my mentors. One of them is Paul. I'm sure I'll get new ones today. And the one that really introduced me to DORA was my mentor at ISACA in 2023. He just talked to me and said, Paula, have you heard about DORA? And I'm like, okay, I've not heard about that. Okay, do you want to do a bit of research and do some 7 slides for me on it? And I did. And from then, I've been following DORA, even though I didn't have any time to work within that space. So who I am, 20 years experience, started with accountancy, thought of the future of work, went to Warwick, studied cybersecurity and management, came out, worked as a cyber risk consultant, and then worked for another bank as a business analyst and a business manager. And I'm currently working on DORA, looking for the next opportunity. Yes, I went to cybersecurity. Then I suddenly realized that everybody's talking about resilience, resilience, resilience. So we're not now going to plan on preventing cyber attacks. We're going to try and make sure we can continue to operate. That's my message for you today. And just when I finished submitting the slides, just 2 days ago, the Commission released a list of 19 companies they're focusing on as the EU service providers that we should watch out for. And AWS was on number 2. It's alphabetical in order anyway, so Google. And that prompted me to think that you've got only 19. I expect more. So you might want to check their website because it's not included here. So we have a list of 19 released on the 18th of November. So what is DORA? It's proposed, but now in law. It was proposed when I wrote the first set, but on the 17th of January 2025, this became an act. And even though we're in UK, the EU is following it, and UK has their own part of it. So we'll be discussing that later. What are we trying to do? Information and communication technology in this new smart city has become, has given us a need, to make sure that we can continue to operate even after being attacked. Because most companies will say, oh, we'll never be attacked. But now it's when, it's not, we will not. So we're going to be attacked. Yes, are we prepared for it? That's where we are right now. And the Commission found out that the single rule book they had before the financial crisis didn't just work for us, didn't work for financial entities. That's why we're trying to say, okay, who will this apply to? Financial entities. We'll see that in some of the slides going forward on Article 2. The scope will be expanded in later slide. So, like I said, they started in 2022. Right now, we've hit the 17th Jan 2025. We have 24 to 36 months to comply with the most critical part of it, which is the TLPT. We'll be discussing that in the future slide. So why DORA? Like I mentioned, the single rule book did not address resilience completely. We need to now harmonize. When this approach, everybody had a way of doing their stuff, but we are now in a period where we need to make sure that what happened in 2008 does not repeat itself because somebody has been hit. And you will see that from the AWS scenario we will look at the end. So our focus is now on ICT risk. And you'll agree with me that we have to focus on this now because we've become a very smart city. And if one is down, millions can be down. All our systems can go in one block. So we have to prepare for the inevitable. So this framework will give us a few benefits. And the key one I would draw attention to is the third-party risks. And that's one of the pillars. And I know that time is gone, so I'm going to flick through, if you don't mind, so that I don't waste the slides will be shared. Oh, yeah. So we are looking for a strong cyber hygiene. When I was a risk consultant and I had various companies I looked into, everybody had it on paper. But when I talked to many people that worked within the IT team, even the management, they were not ready for an attack. And why I said that is because when I speak to them and say, have you done your business impact analysis? They say, yeah, Bola. Can you give me the documentation? This is it. So what is your recovery time objective? They can't tell me. So if you can't tell me your recovery time objective, and you don't know if your data is offline and backed up in a different location, and you can't tell me your recovery point objective, how are you going to know when you're going to come back to life with your critical assets? So most of us don't have it. For this DORA, we're focusing on 5 pillars. We started with 5 in 2022, and they kept it like that. Risk management, incident reporting, resilience testing, third-party risk management, and information sharing. From the latest exam I wrote on DORA, we've mapped it out. One of my mentors has mapped it out. So I'm looking to meet and connect with him soon to delve more into this, to be able to support many organizations. He gave me audience on LinkedIn, so thank you to this new mentor. Now, the impact. That was my main focus for my initial mentor then. He wanted me to understand, tell him what the impact will be. And I was able to tell him from the scope on the slides is focusing on financial entities, yes, but it's also picking up that third-party aspect that now draws the whole world's attention. And we will see from the scenarios later. So there's an economic impact. There's going to be additional costs. We need subject matter experts. We need people. We need to compare how it would affect EU and UK. And UK is also trying to do stuff like that. I think for all you would love to know, everything that is happening within DORA in the EU is definitely going to happen in UK because we're a small community and we're all in this business together. And we really need to be ready for that attack. So the PRA and FCA will be, they've actually released the documents and it's almost the same. For those people that are looking to make money in it, they will be, looking to assist companies to carry out off-site and on-site services. There'll be need to do resilience testing. Adoption of the rule and implementation has been kicked off. And they might have to show that, well, we'll be gaining competitive advantage using these compelling narratives that I gave my mentor then. But I think as a subject matter expert, this was what I aim to deliver for the people that approach me. And I have mapped out some key things that we expect an organization to have, which we'll see in the future. So we'll talk about competing with the market. If we look at a macro view, right? If I go into any organization today, or if you own a business, or if you are the manager or the management, the one responsible, because the commission says management is responsible. Even if you outsource it, you are still responsible. I want you to understand that you need 10 key things, and these are the key things you must have, because they're coming to visit you, and they're coming with fines. And it's not just firm-wide fines, there will be individual fines in some instances. So you must have a risk management framework, you must have information security management system, you must have an incident management process, you must carry out testing, operational testing, resilience testing, third-party risk management, intelligence sharing must be part of your focus. There must be training program that can be evidenced. You know, sometimes we say we have it, but it's just on paper. They have a requirement looking at the proportionality, as in the Article 4, as the size of your organization, the risks you face. Those are the things that will be used to check you out on what you should have. So you can't just say, I have it in this form. If your organization is large, they expect you to do more. So the business continuity program, the change management program, and then there's a DORA compliance program that must be in place within the organizations. So like I mentioned initially, these are the Article 2 tells you the people that are in scope, the organizations in scope, and there's some organizations that are excluded that might need to check to understand if their suppliers are impacted. But I'll leave that to a future day. So I've just skipped through the articles. This is explaining the articles 5 to 16 on risk management, 17 to 23 on incident reporting, 24 to 27. And this is the one that I said it will be between the 24 and 36 months after 17th of Jan. You can be checked on this at any point in time. So we shouldn't wait until we're charged and it becomes a reputational risk before we act. The information sharing, which is just one article, and it's Article 45. I've mapped it because it's under 9 chapters. I wanted to share that with you to give you a clearer view of what we have. But there's some amendments that were made that I wanted to discuss. So this is where we are now. I mentioned this. Some things changed, some things did not change. So yes, the adoption is entered into force, is now fully applicable. The changes, there were changes to some regulatory technical standards, and I'm drawing your attention to that. Implementation and supervision changes. I want you to look at the transition and gap analysis period for entities. These are the minor changes you must focus on. These are the things that didn't change, the 5 pillars, the dates, notes for organizations, the timelines, the need to monitor. The main focus is the third party, and we have to do something about this. It's urgent. And I'll wrap up with the case study, the CrowdStrike. If we look at the DORA implications, that's the real key. Article 5, so we need stronger vendor controls. The service level agreement you had before DORA was kicked off is no longer what you should focus on. You really need to go back to the drawing board and address the gaps. Any change management, and any change that needs to be rolled out now. Anything we are doing to work on incident reporting, is key. Is there a communication plan? Who is going to communicate with the authorities? Who's going to communicate with senior management? When are we going to communicate? There's a time frame. All these things must be checked, because if you fail to communicate at the right time, you get penalized for that. Who is going to communicate with who and when? It's like calling my bottom, because I tell my director sometimes, I need to tell you what will keep you up at night. So this is one of the things that I should keep. If I give you a phone call that we've just been attacked, you need to know who to call next. Do they have the playbook? If there's no playbook, who's going to do what? If there's no team, no CSR team, no location where we can kick things off and begin to solve our customer, there's an issue. So third-party risk, this big focus. Then the need to carry out scenario testing is another thing, especially for senior management. And offsite, all these things have to be done. Now, Jaguar Land Rover, even though it's not part of DORA, I would love to draw your attention to it, because the same key requirements is popping up again. But the last one that I will want to finish up with, and I'm glad the AWS person has gone home now. I was worried when he came up in the morning. Oh, I've got him on my slide. So, he doesn't. Oh, okay, I thought he was. So we're still back to that third party. We're depending on them. We can't afford to think because they've told us on the contracts and they're big enough, we can just go with that. So we have to look for our next steps. What are we going to do? And that requires a bit of mapping. Which of my services will be affected if this happens? So all those things must be discussed, and management must be aware of our steps, our plan of the actions, what we intend to do. And I will suggest that everyone looks at that recovery time objective, recovery point objective, the maximum tolerable outage period that you can afford, just to make sure that you stay in business. So this is my last question for leadership. And I know you're all leaders in this room. So please, how assured are you that you recover from disruption within the time we have? The people are telling you this. Oh, my example for that first question is Travelex. They said between 6 to 12 days we will be back. But I remember during that time, over a month, Travelex was still out. So I wrote a few slides on that and shared with one of my mentors. So do we have confidence in the resilience and dependency management of our critical third parties and supply chain? In one of my most recent roles, I had to help them clear backlog from 2020 for service level agreements and stuff with third party. I can tell you for sure that they are not ready when it comes to that aspect of DORA. So are we fostering a culture of continuous learning? Or things are being swept under incidents, near misses, all these things add up. And we need to challenge our resilience posture. If we don't challenge it, then somebody will call us to action. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes.
Any questions?
Just not sure, but did you call out the contractual uplift as one of the key requirements? Because I think that would be also one of the key things which many firms struggle with, because typically a contract requires 7 to 8 months.
Yeah, that's one of the things that after a review of the service level agreement, we need to focus on. For the ones that we have onboarded, we we need to go back and check the contracts. But for the new third party, it's easy for the new ones for us to say, yes, we're going to take this on board. This person is ready, this person. But for the ones that we have, and most companies have close to 200, 300, 400, especially a bank has like close to 700 suppliers. We need to now go back and check the previous contracts and go back to the drawing board. But it's key. You're right.
And the related question, so under DORA, do you need to look back at your existing contracts, and for your new contracts, they need to be compliant by a specific date?
Existing contracts, yes. New contracts, a must. And if the existing contracts are not going to be DORA compliant, you need to address it before the regulators address you, because you are still the responsible person. They won't look at what you have in place. 17 Jan is kicked off. Now we need to do. So most companies and financial institutions are getting ready and going back to the drawing board with their third parties right now. In fact, they are dropping some.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Stop. We're not that. I wanted to, sort of strengthen something and sort of bring in the most recent example we have, which was this morning, and just go so when you do exercises, when you do like instant response and tabletops and stuff like that, does it feel real? Does it feel, are you actually exercising these things in a meaningful way, or does everybody know up front that it's just an exercise? And we've got people saying, oh, well, we're just pretending this is an incident. And like this morning, apart from the abject, complete lack of communications anyway, none of us knew whether this building was on fire or not. And we still don't know whether it was an exercise or not, which is a bit strange, but actually it's everybody did behave as if it was a real incident. And that's kind of what you want when you are rehearsing these things, rather than people joking around and going, oh, well, yeah, we do this every year. Yeah, it's just like, I've seen it on our Slack and just gone, the guy's like, oh, yeah, we're just, somebody's hacked into this server and they put it in quotes. It's like, oh, for fuck's sake.
It doesn't feel real when it's drawn up internally.
Yeah.
But I know some organizations have used external bodies to perform that, and it felt really real.
Yeah, like when a red team, when a red team does it to you, and only a couple of people know about it in advance. It's like you have no idea, right? Yeah.
If you're a member of my board, as a member of my board now, if I call you at night and I say, "You're right, we've been hacked, and I need you to take a decision now," and you're not aware of it, no one has told you there's a test, you're going to be like, actually, you are going to have to take a decision. So if it's internal, most people don't really take it serious. Yeah. But these things are inevitable, and we have to prepare for it. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Right, we're going to take a short break, chance to stretch your legs and grab a cup of tea or coffee. And I think there are a few bits and pieces left out there, so feel free to munch, and we will be back shortly.
please take it on the chair.
Right, ladies and gentlemen. So for those of you who are new to CSA UK chapter, you'll find we're fairly relaxed with most things we do, including board meetings, including the board election. However, this is the formal bit we have to do. So this is my other hat, my third CSA hat, which is as returning officer for the CSA chapter, which I think only goes with the fact that I've got the greyest hair and have been around for the longest. So anyway, board member elections. For those of you who don't know, both were elected for 2 years. Expiring in 2025, Frank, myself, Sean, Critty, Jean Carlos, Jay, Dawid, who's actually works here on floor 21, so he's going to pop up in a second, and Shireen, who resigned during the year. Our board members in the middle of a 2-year term. So the middle people, Bola, Bob, Roger, Vlad, Alvin, Chris. Vlad sent his apologies, by the way, as did Alvin. Chris, over there, and Raoul. There we are. So we have 8 expiring positions, 3 open positions, if I got my maths right. If I haven't got my maths right, it doesn't matter overly. So people requesting restanding for re-election, myself, Critty, Sean, who's willing to stand as chair or continue as chair because we seconded him into that role halfway through the year, Dawid, Jean Carlos, and a new member, Dave Barnett. And I'm sure a lot of you will know Dave. He's been around in this industry an awful long time. Sorry? Yes, we should probably vote and oh, you don't know him? Okay. I know him. I've known him for years. I'm prepared to vote if someone can second him. We're good. Thank you very much, Bola. Fine. In which case, if everyone is happy, those present, raise your hands. With yes, everyone happy? Anyone against? No. Any objections? Anyone say, no, it's not a fit and suitable person? No. Okay. Good. There we are. Told you it was quick. So what we're going to do, we thought we might have Frank here, but we don't, because he's coming in on a plane or something. He's been in the States. He was hoping to be here, but we doubt he'll make it. He hasn't asked. Correct. He said yeah. He's got enough on his plate. Yeah, he's fairly busy at the moment. So from that point of view, what we made an executive decision during the coffee break, which is what we're going to do is we are going to go and grab ourselves a drink and some nibbles, and then Ed is going to do the closing keynote. There he is, spot on time. Well done, Ed. So simple as that. So yeah, 10 minutes. We're going to grab a drink, grab some nibbles, and we're going to come back in here with drinks and nibbles, and Ed is going to do the closing.
Hello. Oh. That's better. Thanks for coming, Andy. I was going to say I stand in between you and drinks, but I don't. So, although it's interesting, this is probably the first cloud thing I've been to that actually understands networking properly. Sorry, it's been a long day. Trust me, it's been a long day. So thank you for having me. I'm not going to try and sell you anything because I'm really not a salesperson. And much like Andy, I'd give it away for free anyway. So that's why they try and keep me away from anything commercial. I go in, I get rolled out like Hannibal Lecter to go and speak to CISOs, and then they roll me back out when it gets to commercial because I'll be like, just give it them. I'm Ed Tucker. I'm the director of cyber here at Telefónica Tech UK, and I, for my sins, most of my career has been spent on the other side of the fence. So new me would go and see old me and try and give everything away for free. And old me would have worked in government and said, I can't have it for free. I need to pay it. And can it be CapEx? And then we'd have a fire sale at March time. I'm going to do it old school. If I go the right way, would help. So we were very lucky with one of our CISO events recently that Paul Chichester from NCSC came and gave us a bit of a threat briefing. So I'm just going to steal everything he said because he's more clever than I am. But just to give a little bit of flavour of that and kind of put it in the connotation of not just obviously what all you good folk are considering, but you know, there's very few organisations that are wholly cloud. No, even to the point that they might be, but they've still got these physical things. So just context around kind of some of the stuff that we've been seeing, what's going on, just some considerations. Most of them are questions rather than answers, because the answer to every single one of them is it depends, which is you get out of jail free card, unless you're with the board, in which case you go, it depends. No. So just a bit of a state of the nation, what to expect, what we see out there. Echoing, it's a little bit of showing my age, which means I'm going to be attached by Operation U-Tree very, very soon. But essentially kind of top of the tree by a distance. Everyone else, you know, they have to kind of redo the graphs these days because ransomware is just so far ahead of everything else. And there's various different ways that it can affect you and come into organizations. Chich was telling us that he gets a report every day on his desk of all the organizations, UK focused, that have been victims of crime in the last 24 hours. And sadly, it's a long list every single day. And the vast majority is this, and the vast majority of it is, I say avoidable. It's all avoidable in a sense if you just turn everything off and go home. But it's some rudimentary things, so lack of MFA or open RDP ports or a little bit of kind of gaping holes. But also for organizations that don't have a raft of security people to look after an organization and make sure it's secure, it's Kevin. And Kevin also does IT, and he also does the events management and office workspace. He puts the post in the different boxes, and occasionally he looks at kind of like, oh, I've got a 0-day vulnerability. Yes, we do use Fortinet. Other firewalls are available, and they're all as bad. But, you know, realistically, and this is where I think the industry as a whole has to look a bit differently. If you go to most of the events and we talk about security concepts as if they're exactly the same for everyone, and I suppose in terms of the problem space and the fixes, they are, but our ability to actually enact some of those things is vastly different. You know, you've got organizations whose security team runs into triple figures and others that it barely runs into a single figure, if any at all. And they've all got the same problems and they've all got the same fixes. And yet that kind of an economy of scale doesn't really work. And I suppose it's why organizations like us exist. And why obviously all the software vendors exist and everyone else exists, and Frank and his business, and why we all do what we do for different guises. Some of us do it for charity. Some of us don't. But yeah, so, you know, by the time you get to this screen, it's a little bit late. But it leads on, and I'm going to kind of go backwards, back to front on this in a sense. So, of course, when that happens, and of course, the first thing anyone does is, I will say tweet about it, because I don't know how you X about it. And frankly, it's a horrific right-wing platform, but I just can't tear myself away from it and to fight the good fight. But I suppose, sorry?
Yeah, I know. I mean, when you call it X, it makes it sound like some kind of adult site, and it should probably come with that warning, to be frank. Sorry, to be frank. I am available for stand-up as well. So I suppose... So yeah, initially thinking of kind of, at that point, we're kicking in and thinking about kind of what our recovery strategy is. Ideally something's been limited, and we'll get to that a little bit later, but when the poo and the fan have really got very close together, especially in this kind of event where almost everything's off the books now, what's the recovery strategy? And everyone will talk about backups. Of course they do. It's a prime thing, Has anyone actually restored those backups? Do they actually work for a start? Where are they? Which version? Oh, we've got immutable backups. Okay, super duper. Have you ever restored them? Which bit of them? All of them? The whole thing? Have you rebuilt an organization from scratch? Probably not, because frankly, who's got the infrastructure to do it? But, realistically, the first time you're going to have to do that will be in anger. There's a certain amount you've got to think about practice. How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. But needing to understand, you don't want to find out something doesn't work at the point that you really, really need it. It's like having a breakdown and going, oh, I'll phone the breakdown assistance. Oh, my membership lapsed. Eek. Super. At least I've got a credit card to pay the ransom. To get my wheel fixed. Yeah, have you ever tried? But most importantly, what are you restoring to? So if you've got the point where actually you've been nailed in a bad way, there's been plenty out there. I'm not a fear seller. I hate the fact that security sells on fear. It's something I detest. Be more afraid, buy widgets. I don't like that. It's just a fact of life that we need to concentrate on security, ideally not to the detriment of the business and how it operates. But the fact is, when this bad stuff actually happens and we get to that state of actually we need to restore kind of, our base kind of product of what we are as a business, to what? To where? If everything's been buggered, what's left to restore to? And I suppose that's one of the things that kind of sits into, especially obviously what you people are focused on, especially is there an opportunity to create an environment where we can restore to? Because otherwise, what have we got to do first before we can actually restore to something if it's FUBAR to start with? And I think it's something that people don't consider enough, especially when you think about the practice, is everything works in theory until you go, I have no infrastructure. So that expensive license that I've spent with whichever, there are many vendors that do immutable backups. They're very, very good at it. Super duper, smashing. There's nothing here. So what, are we going to have to build physical tin? Are we going to build a cloud environment to do what, with what, in what order? And I suppose that leads into kind of what your continuity strategy. So when you're in this situation, how do you maintain the business operating in any way, shape or form? Most people won't be able to do their jobs. That's, fine. There are some industries where you can go back to pen and paper. If you've ever lost a till system in a pub on a Friday night at about 10 o'clock, you can go to pen and paper. It's frightfully painful. And your credit card machines don't work, which is really painful because no one carries cash anymore. While the business is offline, it's costing money, and part of that is what's your expected loss? What's your expected loss from 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, a week, 4 weeks, 2 months? And what's your minimum viable business? We talk about kind of things like, historically crown jewel assessments. Sorry, I'm showing my age again. I won't talk about Jericho Forum because Paul will just smile at me. But what is that minimum viable business? What are the critical systems that allow the business to operate? And some bright spark will say email, and they should be slapped. But there are different ones, depending on what time of the month it is. Is it the payroll system? Because actually, if you don't pay someone, there's only so long they work on grace and favor. It might be at this time of the month. It's really actually important. If you're at the start of the month, you might have a little bit of leeway, but you need to factor it in that people do like to be paid for the work they do. What keeps you afloat? What are the most vital things? What are the most important orders you've got to fulfill? what are the key business events that are happening around at that time? What is the criticality of what systems? And one of the things we factor into that is systems can have differing criticalities depending on the time of the year and the fluctuation of your business and how it operates. Black Friday's coming up. If you're a retailer, Cloudflare is really important to you. But it's serious things that we need to consider when we go through these things, when we do things like criticality assessments, and also when we do criticality assessments, we have to think about the dependent assets that those systems, services, people, processes depend upon to actually operate, and factor in their timeliness when it comes to criticality. And of course, within that, you've got to think about your response plans. Everyone has an incident response plan. It's written down on paper. Maybe it's on SharePoint, which isn't accessible anymore. Does everyone have a role within it? I mean, no, frankly. But you might have things like gold, silver, bronze tiers of various different incident response. And quite often you see things like the gold tier is just the execs, which is about as much use as a chocolate fire guard, unless one of your execs is actually tech and security savvy. Otherwise, you've got a bunch of people in the room discussing a problem none of them know anything about. You know, you could write what they know about the problem on an atom, and that's probably not going to serve your business very well. So you often find, you know, at this point, hierarchy kind of goes out the window. You do need seniority in there in that gold space, but you need the subject matter experts from whichever ones, and that might be the owners of the critical systems, that'll be IT folk, it might be suppliers, it might be whoever. It's about having the right people in the room at the right time to be able to make the right decisions. And in some regards, to actually stave off some of the, not stupid questions, but people who want, I want an update every hour. It's like, it's just, you know, if, for example, if you're doing forensics on a machine and it's going to take 24 hours to image, there's no point saying we're going to give you an update every hour. What's the update? 17%. What's the update? 19%. What's the update? 15%? Yeah. No, there's a seriousness. I do jest, but you see these things. You do see these things quite commonly, and how, you know, again, when the fur flies, you see real personalities coming out of people. There's a little thing kind of when you're afraid. There's different aspects that when you're moderately afraid, some people will go quiet and some people will go loud. When you put it to the extremes, you often find the converse happens. That suddenly the person is actually really calm under pressure. When you put them under extreme pressure, suddenly goes, ah, and the vocalization of real fear comes out, but a different personality comes out when the bad situation happens. Now, you can't role play for that. You really can't. It just is what it is. But one of the things is you have to deal with it in the room, in the virtual room, on the WhatsApp group, whatever it happens to be, whatever you've got available to you. One of the things as well with that is when you've got, you know, people involved in response plans, it may sound stupid, but are they competent? Because some people aren't. And it might be because of the stressful situation. It might be the technological aspect to it. It might be the business knowledge of it. It might be different aspects that say, actually, that person is not competent for the role in this particular scenario. Therefore, we need this person instead. So thinking about that competence of the people. Who's in charge? Who runs it? It's not always the CEO or the most important person. They might be ultimately someone who makes a key decision where there's an either or, but it's about the right people with the right knowledge that need to take and own these things. What happens at weekends or out of hours? Is everyone available? You know, people have on call at normal human levels, you know, where you kind of, I'm on call this weekend, I won't get bladdered. Might a little bit. But there's others who don't have that. So actually, they're just having a normal Friday night. So, you know, you might be putting a call in and evoking something in your response plan to someone who's drunk because they're not on call in the same way as someone on a help desk or a SOC or an infrastructure or a network side of things or a cloud team that are operating kind of 24 hours or have that on-call rota have. So you've got to factor in that there's a likelihood at the weekend you might have people who are unavailable or available, but not necessarily in the right frame of mind to be able to help you in this situation. Although it might actually lead to quicker decision making. You know, there could be a thing that actually makes seniors drunk and they'll actually make a decision rather than. They might just be a little bit more laissez-faire. And when it comes to these kind of plans and everything like that, where do you keep them? You know, having them on SharePoint is great in one sense, not great in another sense. So having them printed is great in one sense, but then you have to keep them up to date because that person's left and that phone number's changed and that no longer exists. So you've got this constant paper trail about getting it and getting it out to people. And where did I put that response plan? Because it's in that pile of shite over there with all the other papers. And do people actually know where it is and how to invoke it? So what is the planning? What planning have we done as part of that? How well do you understand your assets? Hands up who's got a CMDB? Hands up who's got one that's vaguely accurate? I would hope you have. Well, you are one, yeah, which helps. And one of the joys of simple things like, you know, your cloud infrastructure is often easier to get details of than it is of some of your on-prem infrastructure. You know, even some of the tools that will go and squirrel away and get all your configuration items and everything like that. If you've got kind of a mixed environment, say, use Snows, why not? You've got millions of pounds and you can afford it. Your cloud one looks magnificent and your on-prem one looks blank. There are some things that do some things. And it's very hard then to understand, well, what are they? Understanding what your network looks like. I know it's boring shit, but it's really important. You know, when you're thinking about that kind of, I am going to recover something, ideally you want to know what that thing is and what it's made up of and how it talks to other things. Your network as well can be a huge in preventing some of these things from spreading. Of course they can. And we're going into extreme scenarios, of course we are, rather than just co-enveloping and, you know, sending a letter to the wrong person. Oh, don't start me on that. I have a thing with public IPs because I used to work in government, and we had a thing that we couldn't share public IPs because they were restricted in old money and government old classification schemes. They were IL3, they were restricted, so we cannot share our public IP addresses. And I'm like, what's your role again? I'm the CISO. It's like, oh, jeez. Right. What about our private IP addresses? Can't share them either, but it just says like 10 dot. Yeah, but they're private. Yeah, but everyone's got them. Literally means nothing. Can't share that acronym. Why not? Because it means something to you, not to anyone else. Come on, let's get sensible. But yeah, things like that, you know, and the criticality, understanding these things really matters when it comes to kind of putting these things in place. It's great having a plan. If you don't know what your network looks like, it's really hard to have a plan. If you're rebuilding a network from scratch, or you're rebuilding an entire enterprise from scratch, you're not doing it in minutes, hours, and days. You're talking weeks and months. You are talking weeks and months. That's why I go back to that continuity. What's your minimum viable business? How long are you going to be out before you can stand up that one simple system, service, process, network? You know, we are talking a long amount of time to actually get these done. There are extreme, you know, JLR, we all see that. It's an extreme example. But you look at smaller examples and how long actually that impact upon business operation happens, because these things are not simple. You know, the whole immutable backup and I'll just restore and away we go, it is nonsense, largely. But of course, ideally, you want to catch things before they happen, don't you? Would be nice. Well, vaguely. You know, oh, look at that. There's a lot of noise on the network. Wonder what's going. There's a lot of calls into the help desk. Oh, the help desk has gone. It's great fun. I'll just look in service now. Oh. You know, things about what detective capabilities you've actually got. And that can be many-fold in terms of, you know, being able to understand the nuances and abnormalities of your network. Has anyone here got a network that's been there more than 10 years? Everyone's got a brand new network? Brand spanking new? Are you the NCSC? You literally just went, here's how you build cloud. Yeah, but you started from scratch. That's not fair. Had one in the past. generally speaking, if you have got a network that's got any length to it, you've probably got loops and all sorts of shit going on. So yeah, trying to understand what normal looks like is kind of interesting. Same with user behavior, same with access and all sorts. And some of the alerting that goes on is crazy. We had situations in HMRC where the scene would light up like a Christmas tree because people in a particular office were using a particular VPN and just accessing the intranet. And it would literally send hairs going in all directions because the IDS was just going, there's an attack. It's like, I know the intranet's bad, but it's not that bad. When you look at it, you know, who's actually doing any of your detective things? Again, are they competent? You know, are you just using Copilot, security Copilot, because I don't need human beings anymore? I do love kind of the use of AI in SOCs. I think we're kind of over-egging the beast because no one ever mentions your documentation's got to be in a really good state. And if you use acronyms, it's probably a bad thing because it's going to go acronyms and it's going to try and understand what the acronym is. And quite often acronyms mean different things in different sectors. So, you know, you're looking for a particular thing and it's going to tell you about a medical disease, you know. I'm not sure your SOC analyst's going to be too happy, but at least they know about irritable bowel syndrome now. So it's all good. It's all good. They've at least solved one problem today. Well, you know, it's more exfiltration, I think, but yeah, them's the breaks. But also, what are people looking for? You know, what is that? You know, what's that normalization? What's different? Are they proactive? You know, we all do threat hunting, of course we do. We say we do, we kind of get some IOCs and kind of look generally and put some rules into a SIEM tool and lovely. Some people do, to be fair. And how many tools do they have to use as part of this? You know, is it kind of a case of actually, all the vendors will tell you almost every security team has got 70 security tools in there. I mean, don't talk nonsense, but you're probably talking 10, you know, maybe more, maybe less, depending on what. And how do people access all these different things to actually squirrel data? And can they, or do they have to go to different teams? Do you need to go to the network team, or do you need to go into an infrastructure team, a different team, to actually understand kind of how these things hang together? Again, it's all questions. Simple one. What visibility do you have? What blind spots? I'm not talking about shadow IT because that's just production. It's just someone says, I don't control it, so it's shadow. It's like the dark web. It's the web. But, you know, understanding what blind spots you have, what you're aware of, what you can't see, why you can't see, how can you potentially have access to it? There are, you know, I go back to HMRC because it's a good one because it was a multifaceted organization, well, two organizations that were smashed together because someone thought that'd be fun. But there were elements of it that, you know, IT couldn't see and different people couldn't see because there was criminal investigation side of things, there was law enforcement side of things, there was obviously payroll, personnel, there's all sorts of manifestations that you kind of go, there's only so far deep you can actually go to actually get visibility. Understanding where you are blind is quite important as well. And of course, from visibility and detection, it kind of helps if you monitor everything. You know, everyone says log all the things and then they consider FinOps and then go, don't log all the things, just log some of the things. And whatever you do, don't log DNS because, yeah, I can't afford Azure anymore. You know, there is a balance point, you know, on kind of what you can monitor and for what purpose and what's realistic and what's going to give you the biggest bang for your buck. And also what the longevity, usefulness of that data is. But again, if you're monitoring things, again, who's doing it? Are they competent? And what are they monitoring for and for what purpose? Quite often in organizations, actually, it's multifaceted. It's one team that's monitoring network, infrastructure, security. It's just monitoring all sorts. You know, there might be a dedicated team. People might have SOCs, all sorts. Lots of organizations don't have anything at all when it comes to things like that. And again, you know, what do you do out of hours? You know, how many people do Monday to Friday, 8 till 6? And then outside of that, cyber doesn't happen, so it's okay. Because we don't worry about, you know, people working out of hours because we frown upon it, and so do the criminals, and they all work against a UK time zone, which is really useful. And finally, kind of what protective controls do you actually have in place? Frankly, do they work? You know, there is a tale as old as time that people will sell you things that you don't need, and you have no process in place to actually implement. You know, how many people here have bought X amount of modules and used X minus N number of those modules and then got to renewals and gone, I don't think I'm getting the value from this product. Yeah. There needs to be, with any purchase like this, there needs to be a process to actually, how do I implement those modules? How do I do the 4Es? How do I start to explore them in the first place before even exploiting them, and then exhaust and then think of, what comes next? There's a lot of things where we overspend on things and don't implement, or we put controls in and we just leave them alone, realizing that nothing ever needs tuning. It just works, which is why I don't have my car MOT'd. But it's a fact of life, and it genuinely happens. People do. There's an easy thing. Buying technology is an easy thing. Buy technology, implement technology. Problem has gone away. Oh, problem is there. How did that happen? And of course, with all your protective controls and everything that we've done historically, what happens if they just log in? Fine. Oh, look, it's a normal person doing normal things, and oh, whoop, go back to the start again. Because, of course, by now it's too late. And all I really wanted to do was just take you through a little bit of a whistle-stop tour and things like that. So, some key takeaways, and a lot of this was what Chich told us as well. So, it's from Chich, so it must be true. But also what we are seeing as well from Telefónica, and what the industry's seeing, and what probably, teaching you all to suck eggs. Identity is kind of important, really is at the moment. Again, we use the lovely acronyms like AITM, which makes me think I'm going to withdraw money from something. But, identity, whether it's OAuth tokens, whether it's logging in, whether it's lack of MFA, whatever it happens to be, it is big game. Your network could save you or make things worse. I'd be amazed how many flat networks there are out there. There's a lot of flat networks. Yeah. Also, your suppliers can really cause you some mischief. Hi. No, we don't, honestly. But, but we're a one-to-many relationship, so why wouldn't you target the MSP? That's why we've got things like MSPs are now including the CSRB. So there's a reason for that, because there's been targeting against MSPs. So, of course, but it's also the little suppliers, the little suppliers who get popped, trawl through their 365 environment or whatever mail environment it happens to be, look at who they send emails to, and they'll send a legitimate email at a legitimate time of the month to a legitimate recipient with a legitimate attachment, maybe a little bit of added value. But of course, no one, you can do all your phishing simulations or all your culture and all that kind of stuff. I was going to say nonsense. It's not nonsense. We just largely do it really badly. No human being is not opening that attachment, because it's absolutely normal. It's perfectly normal. It's from the right mailbox. It's from the genuine organization. It's got all the right commentary in there. It's got the right attachment in there, but it's got added value. You can't blame a human being for that. Not even that. It's just, here's your monthly invoice. Merry Christmas. Boring stuff does matter. I did have a swear word in there. I used this at a conference for a bunch of pathologists, and actually used the word shit in there, and they asked me to take it out because it might offend someone. I hope that didn't offend anyone here. Boring stuff matters. It really does matter. Don't underestimate asset management. Really don't underestimate asset management. And it's a cottage industry in its own right. It's a bit like risk management. If you did risk management properly, most of your organization would be risk professionals. And then there'd be a couple of people doing like payroll and sales. Asset management's kind of similar, but it's really important and it's really hard to do, which is why no one's got really rank aside and Paul aside, a proper fully functioning, all singing, all dancing CMDB. It's a unicorn. If anyone actually genuinely creates one of those, that's what we should focus on, not AI. It's actually getting a CMDB and understanding ITIL. That's really useful. Who's watching, who's responding, when, out of hours, everything that goes with it. And simply, how will you continue to operate? Because when it does get really bad, we are talking months. And has an organization considered as part of its tabletop exercise, what happens if we're down for 4 months? What actually happens if we're down for 4 months? Thanks. Doris? Be happy.
Thank you very much. And yeah, great way to finish the day. Thank you. Definite food for thought. Well, I just like that. I do have a fully functional CMDB, but I only have 9 machines on it. So it's called cheating. Frank, since you pay for the drinks, say a few words.
Hey everyone, Frank here. Pay for the drinks, so pay for the spot. Now, jokes aside, I've been on the board for now 8 years, 9 years. Yeah, I've been here for quite a while. Cloud security, application security, I've seen them all. One of the problems that we actually seen in the past was actually CMDB, is attributing the right things to the right people, but doing it with engineers has been really, really hard because they don't want to log in ServiceNow. They don't want to log in any rudimentary CSV that you might have located somewhere else. So we actually made their life easier and created a YAML-based CMDB that connect to all of your vulnerability, attributes, threat intel, so that you can give the right vulnerability to the right team, not just, hey, go and figure out of the 15 tools that you probably don't have access, where is your problem and what you own. That's Phoenix. That's about us. Thank you. Enjoy the drink.
I think that has been on record as the fastest Frank presentation ever. Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it. Thank you very much for attending. Thank you very much for making